Good morning and welcome once again to the broncolor studio. I'm Urs Recho and I have the pleasure to talk to you about the action and outdoor photography today. So unfortunately, no live shooting today. It's all based on previous shootings I made in the last couple of days and weeks. And we will discuss a couple of sets and look at how I use the light. And we will we will have a look at some of the technical problems. So how to deal with sunlight in the set, how to deal with changing lighting conditions when the sun is out and disappears again. And talking about the sun, we will have to discuss as well HSS. So how can we actually get really, really sharp photographs, even if there's a lot of daylight around. This is the last webinar of this spring series. And at the end of today's webinar, we have a feedback form that you will be directed to directly after the session is closed. So please fill in this feedback form quickly, what you think about this series, specifically about today's webinar, and as well what you would like to see later this year. Because obviously in late summer, maybe in fall, we come back with a new series of webinar, and some feedback from you guys is always important for us that we actually discuss the right subjects. Questions? We decided that there's not a specific question window. So if you would like to know something more precisely, if I explain something not good enough, please use the chat window on the right. My dear colleague Ramon, who is in the studio with me, will moderate these questions and answer some of them directly. And if he doesn't want to answer, or if he wants me to answer it, he passes them on to me and I will use them and answer them directly during today's webinar. All right. So yeah, we start with a set with a shooting that I've done some 10 days ago in Paris. And let's go there. Okay, good. So this is one of the finals. It's a Taekwondo fighter, and I shot him on the Pont des Arts. So that's one of the finals. And we have another one where I have it. Actually, I shot most of the photographs like this. And in the end, I realized that it's much cooler if he's not, let's say, in front of the building, but this is more like a personal taste. Has nothing to do with the lighting. All right. Of course, a challenge was as well. On one side, the tourists, some of them really came close to him, made selfies with him, and which was not really helping for the photograph. And you can see in the background a little bit that I have a little bit of sun there on the background right now. Here I have nothing on the background. So this was actually the biggest challenge, these changing lighting conditions. But you can see on the sky, I had, let's say, 80% or 75% clouds. And that's how I planned the shooting. So I was setting up the light for the cloud situation. And whenever the sun was out, there was just a short break. Right. So how did I light this? I used the para from the right. And what you see that it's not a standard para. It's a para 133 HR. The HR is for heat resistant. Here it had a different reason. So originally the heat resistant paras were designed to use HMIs, so very hot lights inside, or as well tungsten lights. So the inner, also the center of the para is slightly more shiny, and that's heat resistant material. And that's the main reason. And from a lighting point of view, as I said, the inner part is more shiny and the outer part is the normal para reflective material, which means I have more or less two reflectors in one. When you have a normal para, you can constantly focus or defocus it. So if the lamp head is all the way into the para, the light is more like focused, and then you can seamlessly, basically, you can widen the light angle and the white becomes more even, first of all, and it becomes, it covers a much bigger area. Of course, the price I pay for this is the power. With the para HR, it's a slightly different situation, because there is a certain position where actually the lamp head from fully focused, where you use the shiny part, you defocus it, and then some of the reflections are on the shiny part, on the HR material, and some of the reflections are on the outer part, on the non-HR material, which is slightly more textured. And that's why with if you use it with flash, I personally recommend that you use either this or that situation. So either focused or defocused, but intermediate positions sometimes can look a little strange. The intermediate position, they look perfect with all the normal paras, but with the HRs, it could be that you have a certain amount of light is reflected on this very aggressive reflective material from the inner core, and some additional light, almost like a fill-in light, you get from the more textured surroundings. In this situation, let's go back to the presentation, which is here. Exactly in this situation, I had to pay attention a little bit to the environment. So I could not really set up the light where I wanted, which would have been a little closer to the athlete maybe. So the light had to be far away, and that's the reason why I chose the HR para, because I can focus it more precisely, or more, maybe more precisely, maybe that's the right word, and which means I can put it further away and focus the light more precisely on the athlete. If I would have used a normal para, especially the small ones like the 88 and the 133, they have a textured reflective material and they are without grids. They are not focusable as precisely as, let's say, the big paras, the 177 and the 222. So in this situation, para had to be far away. I guess we have here at least something like 5 or 6 meters. But by focusing it and using the HR material from the inside, I had by far enough light on the athlete. And I really could focus it directly on him, not too much light on the background, really just on him, so the light arrived where I actually need it. Then this guy, he didn't make it very simple for me, because he came with a white top and with black pants, which is, of course, not the photographer's preferred outfit. That's why I had an assistant there. We had no more stands. And so that's why I gave her this lamp head connected to the same power pack. We will see this later on, and with narrow grids. And she was constantly aiming at the black pants. Obviously with narrow grids, because I didn't want to illuminate the white top even more. So just narrow grids as well, from about maybe 4 meters away from the athlete, just hitting the black pants to give there a little bit more texture, but at rather low power. The last little bit I did later on before the export, I just lifted the shadows a tiny little bit. So this comes all from the right side, para, main light, and then a fill-in from the same side as the main light. Otherwise it would be confusing with P70 and narrow grids. Then, talk about the power. I used a Satos, so all the lights that came from the right are connected to the Satos 1600. You see the power settings on the para, it's 10.5. On the small grid, it's 9.5. 10.5 refers to about 600 joules, just to give you an idea. The small Satos, we have extended the power range on the Satos power pack, so they have a power range of more than 10 f-stops. So that's why we cannot go with the power only up to 10. But actually the small one, which you see here, the 1600 goes up to 12, and then the 3200 goes all the way up to 13. This 10.5 refers to about 600 joules, and then obviously on this 9.5, what I have on the P70 on the standard reflector with the grids, refers to about 300 joules. And then last but not least, I hope you can see it, it's on the left. It's clearly marked with a broncolor box that the pedestrians are not falling over. There is one more lamp. This is a Ceros 800, Ceros L800, I have to say. Somewhere around power 9, we always switched it between 8.5 to 9.3, but somewhere around power 9, which means about 400 joules. So the total setup is about 1,300 joules, coming from the Satos on the right with the 2 lamps on the right, and then this rim light coming from the Zeros with white grids on the left side, just to focus or to produce this rim light on the other side. Maybe it makes sense that we go quickly back again, that you can see the 2 lights again. So the para is, let's say, in front of him, so covers the front of the athlete, and then on the left side, this is clearly a backlight. So it's just the rim on the left side of the athlete. Exactly. So these are the 2 lights. Exactly, somewhere around 1,300 joules in total power. At the end, we started to make some more dynamic shots, and there I had to change the entire set, because you see as well that we have more and more sun, so the clouds disappear. So on the right side, we still have only the athlete, and later on we had the model joining us as well, and you can see that there were the clouds disappeared, and that's of course on one side it's nice, on the other side it's a headache, because you have to deal with one more element all of a sudden, and having much more sun and much less clouds, I could not wait all the time until a cloud covered the entire set. So in the end, I had to deal with the sun. And if you have sun in the photograph, all of a sudden the exposure time, I say it wrong, the shutter speed becomes important, because we are exposing the sun as well. If you have seen that the scene is somewhat underexposed, and if I have the clouds covering, I don't really care too much about the ambient light. I just expose it to the value I want, and then the strong flash overpowers everything and guarantees at short flash durations, which is actually the exposure time, and it's not the shutter speed. So the short flash duration actually guarantees a sharp photograph. But the sun is of course very strong, and even if it's just a rim light, it could be that the sun creates some unsharpnesses, and that's why we actually changed the entire shot from normal flashing into HSS. And I would like to illustrate this quickly with a different shoot that I have done earlier. We have done an entire webinar, when I'm right, about this shot specifically, where we talk much more precisely about all these aspects of dealing with sunlight and HSS, which is short time synchronization. Let's have a look at the setup. So this is the sun coming from behind the athlete. So, I mean, this is of course a big problem solver that I most of the time always start with. If you have the sun as a backlight, the sun only hits the rim of the person, which means everything which is facing the camera is more or less black, especially if you underexpose the entire shot. So you underexpose it, and you have the sun as a backlight only. So the entire front of the athlete would be more or less black, which means there I have kind of studio environment, and I only have to deal with the sun hitting the rims. Okay, so what happens? I set up the first shot as well with normal flashing, as I would do it in the studio with short flash durations. And you can't probably see it on the small one. Actually, when you look at the camera, it all looks perfect. You know, everything sharp, the t-shirt, nice texture, and so on. But if you have a closer look at it, you see that it's not everything that perfect as you want. And you see, let's say, the knee. On the shadow side, so where the sun is not hitting, there the knee and his shorts are perfectly sharp, but where the sun is hitting, there I have a longer exposure time. Even if the flash is super short, let's say, I don't know, 8,000 of a second, but then the sunlight is exposed with, let's say, a 250th of a second, because I have to use the shortest sync speed of the camera, which is nowadays most of the time 250th of a second. So we changed this to HSS, which I will explain just in a minute. And again, this shot kind of looks the same. You see the one big difference as well in the background. So with HSS, I can open the aperture much more. Still working with the same exposure, so underexposing the environment, the landscape, here the glacier in the background, but I can open the aperture because I'm allowed to work with 8,000 of a second on the camera. So if you check out the background's sharpness compared to the original shot, here it's just unnaturally bright, because in order to underexpose the environment, I had probably to close down to 16 or even 22. So everything looks super, super sharp, except these stupid parts of the body that are reached with the sunlight. So here I open the aperture, I get the more pleasant depth of field, which is, it's more selective, but, and that's the important thing, all of a sudden, even the parts that are hit by the sunlight and moved very, very fast are now sharp, because now the exposure time is coming from the camera, because I use 8,000 of a second shutter speed on the camera. So even the sunlight, of course, is limited to this 8,000 of a second. However, when I'm in the studio, or the shadow part of the athlete is frozen by a short flash duration, which could be an 8,000 of a second as well. Okay, but it's a big, big difference. So shutter speed on the camera is not the same like exposure time. And having this combination of sunlight hitting some parts and the flash hitting some other parts, you actually have to deal with this. Now, what does this HSS do? Ironically, HSS is nothing else on the flash side than a very long flash duration. If you work normally in a studio with flash, what happens? You have two curtains in your camera. The first curtain opens, bam, flash, second curtain closes. And this works fine until about the 250th. On the 250th of a second, it would be the following situation. The first curtain opens, flash, second closes immediately. But if you go shorter, the opening of the curtain is more narrow. So you never find a moment where the entire chip is actually exposed to your flashlight. Okay, so when I run down my chip with such a narrow opening, at what time should I fire my flash? You're always wrong, because you always get one illuminated line of pixels only. So the trick is that we extend the flash duration. Why? Because even if we have 8,000 of a second on the camera, the time from the exposure of the first pixel in the first row until we expose the last pixel on the lowest end of the picture, this still lasts about the 250th of a second. So in order to have a correct exposure from the first all the way to the last picture, we have to have something like continuous flash. So we have to extend the flash duration that it's long enough to expose the last pixel, the first pixel, all the pixel in between, and the last pixel as even as possible, of course. So it's important that we have the power outlet on the same level additionally, otherwise we would have a power loss during the exposure. So the beginning, where we have the fully charged capacitors, it would be brighter, and then it's getting less. The voltage in the capacitors starts to get lower, and this means that the flash tube gets darker, and we have a bright start of the picture. We have a bright start of the exposure, and then the exposure drops down, which is not very pleasant. Within brackets, this means as well that HSS is something that we use outside, because I get so many feedback from photographers, this HSS in the studio. I've been shooting dancers, I've been shooting, I don't know, portraits with wind in the hair and so on and so on. I'm not happy with HSS in the studio. In the studio, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, okay? Because in the studio, we have super short flash durations, okay? With a Scoro, we have a 10,000th of a second. With new Satos, we have almost like a 30,000th of a second. So there's no reason to use short shutter speeds on the camera, because we have extremely short lighting impulses from the flash units. Even a CROS goes down to 8,500 of a second, which is shorter and faster than most of the cameras that are in use. So HSS is an outdoor thing, and that's where it belongs. Right. Okay. So by using actually the 8,000 of a second or the shorter shutter speed, we have two advantages. We can work with a more selective depth of field, and at the same time, the areas of the shot that are hit by sunlight are shortly exposed as well and do not show any motion blur. I think I have one more example. Yes, that's this one. We have been shooting this very Swiss picture for the World Photography Day 2023. So like September last year. And again, yeah, I'm more used to studio photography, so that's why personally I think, okay, we flash this short and the world is fine. And then I shot the picture on the left. Again, first of all, it looks it's quite okay. And then I had a close look at it, and you see that on the left it's normal flashing, and on the right it's HSS again. So the one that's in front of the cloud. I used, again, a backlight situation, so it's the same trick, having the sun in the back. But which means if I'm not flashing, the flag is actually black. Okay, and then of course we have some movement. It's not really resulting in a clear unsharpness, but we get this fancy shadow contours around. Can be nice sometimes. In this situation, I try to avoid it, so that's why I changed the entire shot into a HSS setup. Okay, and this is the setup. I hope you can see it in front of me, just below the camera stand. There is actually a Satos. The Satos is very strong with this HSS thing because Satos pulses the flash. So we start the flash, we cut the fancy peak. So that's why we never reach a very high intensity, which actually would turn the light slightly blue. So we actually start with a neutral light. We reach this 5,500, 5,600 Kelvin, and then we keep the light very constant until the end of my shutter procedure. Okay. As I said, this is sometimes the Satos tells you it's somewhere around the 200 of a second anyway. So we fire the flash and then we keep it constant. As I said, it's like constant light. It's continuous flash, if you want to call it that way. And Satos is very strong in this situation because it deals differently with the discharging process of the capacitors than, for example, a CROS or a Scoro power pack. Right. Okay. So what else to the setup compared to the Taekwondo fighter before? I had a para again, but this time it's a normal para. It's an 88 para as well. You can see it on the focusing rod. It's all the way out. So again, I use it fully focused. I mean, whenever the light is far away, and here you can see the sun is out, so I really want all the tools that I carry up the mountain, I want all the tools to reach the model. And in this situation, the para is not that far from the right. I covered I used it much more frontal, more or less like a standard fashion setup. So not like this dramatic, almost 90 degrees from the right angle, and that shaped or that textured the white outfit of this Taekwondo fighter very nicely. So this is more like a standard fashion outfit where I had the light somewhere like 30 degrees, 45 degrees from the camera. On the left side, coming from the same direction like the sun, I had a P70. So the angle between para model and P70 is maybe something like a 120 degrees. Before it was 180 degrees. So it was much more aggressive before, creating darker parts inside the body and shaping the outfit of the athlete much nicer. What you can see as well, especially when I tell you that there is a little bit of orange filter on the P70, because the P70 comes from the same direction as the sunlight, comes from the left, and we have been shooting into the sunset, and I didn't want to illuminate his white blouse unnaturally cold, because when the sun is setting down, it's getting more and more yellowish orange. So I wanted to just to support this light a little bit, and I wanted to keep the same light color in it. Let's say I go back quickly, so maybe you can see this. Yeah, you can see it. On the para, I did not do this, so we have the clean light on the para, which almost looks a little bit cold if we compare it with the rest of the set. But then you can see as well that the light that comes from the left is slightly warm tone, just supporting the color temperature of the sun. And then we took actually quite a long break, like an hour and a half. We have been waiting until the sun was really down. We have been shooting into the night, and this allowed us to work with additional continuous light. These are the two lights that you see just in front of the softbox. So I replaced the P70 with a softbox. And then I had two normal reflectors focused on two LED f160 lamps, both equipped with grids, because I did not want to have this continuous light that provokes some unsharpnesses on the I don't know what he's doing on the model, on the flag thrower. I don't know if this is the correct expression. Anyway, this light should not hit him, but only the flag, which is flying in the air. So that's why I went relatively close with it, and I used grids that allowed me to have this light only on the area above the model, and the result looked like this in the end. You see it a little bit that on the hand that's in the air of the athlete, there we have a little bit of movement already, because of course the grids are not that super precise. It could have been done a little bit more precisely if I would have brought, let's say, black flags in the set, but we did not have these. But I think this is absolutely acceptable. And here we have the shutter dragging was done with two LED f160s, and then of course a short flash duration. Here, not HSS anymore, so that's again the normal situation. The camera was open here probably during a quarter of a second or half a second, I don't remember exactly. But I mean, when I do not flash, the model was completely black. Okay, so the short flash duration froze the movement completely. So that's extreme opposite to HSS. It's a long shutter speed and a short flash duration. Again, HSS is a super short shutter speed and a long flash duration, because we need something like continuous flash or continuous light. Okay, so this about the HSS, and that's exactly what I used here. This is Silene. I used her, or I had the pleasure to shoot her during the seminar in Paris, and she definitely wanted to come back for the fashion shot, or this to model again after I've been shooting the Taekwondo fighter, and I wanted to make a combination between fashion and, of course, Paris. So we know that the Olympics are going to be in Paris very soon. So I wanted to make an athletic fashion shot. So that's why I let her run. Light setup, I don't have behind the scenes photograph here, but from the left, creating as well the shadow of the arm on her body is again a para. It's the same 133 HR focused on her. That allows me to focus the light. And then on the back side, a little higher, coming from the right, a little higher again, the P70, because I didn't want, you see that what we have on the top of her hair, that's actually the sun. You see as well the direction of the sun. You can guess it from the shadow on the floor. So the shadow on the floor is actually the original shadow of the sun. And then I just wanted to extend the rim light that already exposes the top of her head and the top of her hair. with an additional P70, like a continuation of the sunlight. That's why the P70 on the right, just out of the picture frame, is rather high, and that's creating as well the long shadow we have towards the left on the photograph. So photographically, not super nice, to be honest, because we have two shadows. So the two shadows are even overlapping, where her left foot is actually creating a shadow. So there we have this very dark spot because it's not hit by the sunlight and it's not hit by the P70. So this is something I normally try to avoid. Here I needed this high position, so this is something that I would normally retouch. But this picture here is out of camera because it's for illustration reasons. All right, but HSS again, and I hope you can see this, that even the super fast moving left foot is razor sharp. No big, not big movement, no movements at all. By the way, everything I explain right now about HSS, maybe, I don't know, but maybe we have to reconsider all this in the next couple of years, because global shutter is going to change all this dramatically. So far, it's only one camera brand that came out with these global shutters, with this, as far as I know, which have these very short flash durations that expose the entire photograph, the entire picture at the same time. So there's no more electronic or mechanical shutter running down. So yeah, any new development in technology like this, the digital photography and so on, the shorter exposure times and the performance with noise and the resolution and so on and so on, everything moved like crazy, and in the end all the cameras did pretty much the same. So I guess that this global shutter will be the future. But as I said, I don't know. But maybe we have to rethink all these HSS things, because all of a sudden, if you don't have these shutters running down in front of our chips, yeah, we don't have to worry about this too much anymore, because it's we expose the entire chip at the same time. So maybe in a future webinar, maybe next year and so on, we will have to reconsider this and think differently about flash photography. Right, where are we? Okay, good. Then last but not least, just last week, I had the pleasure to shoot Ivana, athlete who is specialized in wide jump. And this is the setup we used. The setup is actually quite similar again to what we have done with the Taekwondo athlete, because you see the main light, which is, guess what, para. Again, I want to repeat this once more. Why do I take a para and not a softbox out? I can have the light further away. I can focus the light, so I have plenty of light and arriving at the athlete's position. If you want to have the same light output with a softbox, you have to go much closer. So you're probably going into the picture frame. If you are closer with your light shaper, the light fall off is quicker over the distance. All disadvantages. So having a focusable light source like the para allows you to have the light a little bit further away, and you still can have all your photons that you produce with your light, with your lamp head, that all the light is actually arriving where you need it, and that's at the athlete's position. Then again, obviously, I was shooting her more or less when she is taking off. So where we have the white area on the path, and that's why in this situation again, when I shoot athletes to shape the muscles nicely, I often use this kind of setup that we have model para, like in a 180-degree setup. This causes a darker area facing me, facing the photographer. But as I said, this shapes the body and the muscles quite nicely. Unfortunately, this streaming software does not allow me to show you the film directly out of the presentation. So that's why I'm going to show you these behind the scenes videos quickly out of a different window. Take off reel Okay, yes. So that's a real speed. Right. Okay, and then we have the same in slow motion. In this situation, I try not to look through the camera. I just try to keep the camera at the right framing. And like this, I can see the athlete coming, and I have a better chance actually to hit the button at the right moment. Okay, good. Right. So these are just screenshots from the videos we have just seen. Second set, I wanted to shoot her in the air. So like it's a series of 3 photographs, takeoff, the flight, and then the landing or the impact almost. So this is the final result. And what was actually quite clear is that the camera position, of course, as low as possible. So we have been digging in the sand as low as possible because I didn't want to lie there and to get all sandy. And I thought, okay, if the camera is so low, we just take the lights as well as low as possible. But this was a wrong decision because the light did look much too flat. So this is still the wrong position. We tried some timing issues, and of course with this it worked perfectly. But the lights are just too low. It's not this 180 degrees angle anymore. It's like more like a 120 degrees. So there's too much light hitting the lower part of the legs, and it's not really shaping the muscles and so on and so on. So that's why I went higher with the 2 lights, as you will see later on. What you see here as well, that's a behind-the-scenes shot with a phone. And you see that only the center part actually is illuminated with flashlight. So we have the normal daylight on the top, and then we have on the height of my head, we have there the flashes are firing. But for example, the athlete is not in this light, and then at the lower part, the grass again is not exposed. So that's actually, first of all, it's a good timing, a good finger from my colleague who shot the behind the scenes. And it's actually quite interesting how actually you can see very clearly how iPhones expose a shot like that. Okay, but yeah, that's the final position of the light. So we went, or I took again the para up on the stand. Even the backlight, even the rim light is slightly higher, just not on the floor anymore. Camera is still digged into the sand, and I fire it from the computer. And this is the final position. So if you imagine that the athlete is flying a little further, for those that are into athletics, she changed from a wide jump position to a hurdle position because it looked just much more elegant if one leg is nice. So it's not the correct position for her if she wants to go very, very far. But I didn't really care about this if she flies 4 meter or 5 meter. I just wanted to get my nice photograph. But these are the final position of the lights. And here we actually, at the end, we gave the trigger. We gave this to my colleague who did behind the scenes. So actually behind the scenes here is shot with the camera trigger, with the camera settings as well. So that's why everything is underexposed. And using the shutter speed and the aperture sensitivity that I used for the final shot. What you see on my back coming from the left, this is still the sun. Okay, so that's the last little bit remaining sunlight that I have, but we changed. But beside this, the position of the lights are the ones we used for the final shot. Small change as well on the lamp on the P70 coming from the other side of the sandbag. There we added honeycomb grids as well, just to have a little bit more control over the light, not hitting my lens, not hitting too much of the sand where we don't want it. So this was a small change, and we used this change as well on the very last shot, which is here. And again, this is a video that does not want to show up. So that's why I show you this one again here as a slow motion. Para from the left, gridded P70 from our right. And then waiting for the impact and trying to press the button at the right moment. Duck, yes, exactly. It's a pity, that we can't see this because there's really just one frame of the video that shows the flash exposure. We will correct this later on when we will upload all these webinars. They are uploaded anyway, a couple of days after the live broadcast. So we will modify this and let you see the flashlight exposure in the video with the upload onto YouTube. That happens in a couple of days. Anyway, if you missed these webinars earlier, as I said, probably we are approaching 40 webinars like this. That's the how-to videos. So anyway, there are a lot of webinars because it's I don't know the 5th or the 6th season. So all these webinars are available for review on a playlist. You find this very easily directly on YouTube or of course via the broncolor website. So what's missing? It's the final of the last shot. Okay, so here that's that's the final. Again, what you see as well, that the light on the right side has grids mounted. That's why you see this light hitting the sand, but not on the, let's say, on the right side from our position or on the model's left arm. You don't really see this light. It's just a little bit of remaining daylight there. So this is just a variation. Of course, the shadows turn a little darker, but I thought they are not black. So that's why I wanted not to use this classic light from both sides. And I left it relatively dark on the right side and used the grids from the right side only to increase the texture of the sand that otherwise would be much too dark, especially on the right side. Okay. Good. So let's stop the presentation here. So these are the 4 sets that I wanted to discuss. Just once again, there was no specific session about questions, but if you have something that you would like to ask about these outdoor shootings, how to deal with the sun, what is this HSS doing? So please, pretty much like the last chance to ask your questions. Right, otherwise let me check quickly. Yes, no, I think that's pretty much it. From the power, I managed to use to create all these shoots with a 1600 Satos pack, and then most of the time I take an additional Ceros with me. I take a Ceros 800 with me. First of all, I can add up the power, so I have 1600 from the Satos, and then I have another 800 from a Ceros, so I end up with 2400 joules, which is definitely sufficient for almost any application. And the other reason is, especially when you shoot with athletes, I don't want to have any cables in the set. And of course, if you have seen, there's most of the time there's one light on the right, there's one light on the left, and if they come from if they get the energy from the same Satos, you have to use extension cables first of all, and you have to put the cables through the set. And this is always creating one more possibility to get hurt, to struggle over these cables. That's why I actually personally I prefer to have a Ceros 800 as a backlight most of the time, because backlights are anyway they appear stronger in the set. I don't need the full power, and the 800 joules from a Ceros 800L is always sufficient with this. Right. Okay. So still no questions, which means hopefully everything clear. I would like to thank you very much for your time listening to this. Once again, please give us 2 minutes from your time to fill in the feedback form, which you will be redirected instantly right now. and type in what you would like to see later on this year from us presenting either on the product side or lighting problems. For today, for this morning, that's it. Thank you very much for your time. All the best. Bye-bye.